Okay, here we go. This is the last section of the chapter that we're going to cover. This is 8-6, law of sines, law of cosines. So like I just told you, yes, I know you just heard the word sine and cosine, which we've been talking about this whole chapter, but this section, you don't have to understand anything we've talked about the whole chapter to be able to do today. Okay, so that's kind of nice to know. With this section, what have all the triangles been so far this chapter? Right triangles, right? Is every triangle in the whole world a right triangle? No. So that's why this exists today. So when it's not a right triangle, these are our choices instead. If it was a right triangle, I would either do SOHCAHTOA or like my 30, 60, 90, 45, 45, 90, right? But if it's not a right triangle, we're going to do one of these two things, okay? So if you look at yours really quickly, because you have all the formulas right above each other, you've got the law of sines and law of cosines. Does everybody at least agree, even though you have no idea what those say, I get that, does everybody at least agree that the top line, what I'm saying is this stuff, looks a little bit easier than the law of cosines, right? So anytime we can, we usually try to use this one instead of the one below it for you guys. So sometimes it's not an option, but I usually try this one first. Okay, so now I'm going to explain what this one is. So with law of sines, it can be used, you don't have to write this down. I know you don't have it, but you don't have to write it down. It can be used to find the side lengths and angle measures for any triangle. That's their way of saying it doesn't have to be a right triangle, okay? Use it to solve a triangle when you know the measures of two angles in any side, so AAS or ASA. If you've forgotten what those are, it's angle, angle, side, and angle, side, angle. I'll refresh your memory with an example in a second, okay? It can be used when you know two sides in an angle and you're trying to find another angle. You don't have to memorize that at all. If you want to write this down, because you don't have that, right? If you want to write that down, it wouldn't be the worst idea in the world, but you don't have to memorize that. I show you another way to figure it out too. So if you're someone who like kind of remembers that and that works for you, maybe write that down, and if not, that's fine too. I don't care, okay? So with this one, our formula, you're never going to use three of them. The only reason they have all three there is to let you know it doesn't matter which angle or which side you're talking about. So like for a second, maybe cover this up with your finger or something, and you're going to have a fraction equal to a fraction every time, which we would do our cross multiplication. Okay, so we would just have something equals something. We wouldn't have three of them, all right? So here's how this works. By now you guys should know that angles are capitalized and sides are lowercase, right? So if I'm looking at this triangle, I have capital A for angle A and little a for the side across from it, right? Capital B, little b. Capital C, little c. Everybody gets that by now, right? Okay? So with this formula, again, I'm just going to focus on two of them. I'm going to say sine of an angle over its opposite side equals sine of an angle over its opposite side. Do you guys see what I'm saying? Or I could have done these two, or I could have done these two. It doesn't matter. Any of those are fine. Okay? I'll show you how to do it in a second. It's really not as scary as this kind of looks, all right? And then we've got law of cosines. This one's used to solve a triangle if you know the measures of two sides in the included angle. So SAS, side, angle, side. You might want to write that down if it makes sense to you. You don't have to. I don't care. I wouldn't write like the whole sentence down, but SAS maybe, okay? So what you want to do is anytime you can use law of sines first, I would, because it's easier. And if you have to use law of cosines, then we use that one. Same thing as before. I don't need three formulas. I have those up there so that you understand it doesn't matter where A, B, and C are. They're all the same formula. But I just memorized the one. And I know that looks scary. It's really not that bad when I show you an example. Okay? So it's kind of like Pythagorean Theorem, where we always say a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where c is the hypotenuse, right? So the hypotenuse had to go in a certain spot, but then like the other two legs, you could put either way. It didn't matter. Same concept here. Here's what I want you to know. The A's matched, right? Like this is the side and this is the angle. Do you guys see what I'm saying there? Okay, if you want to look, see how this B and this B, this C and this C, do you guys see what I'm saying? Okay, I'm just going to look at the first one though. So then these two have to match. Those matter where you put them. These two, it doesn't matter. If I'm adding, couldn't I have like C here and B here? Like it doesn't matter, right? So these are the other two legs, any order you want, minus 2 times the other two legs, any order you want, times the cosine of that one matters, the angle across from the side that you're probably looking for, okay? When I show you an example, it's not that scary, All right? Find x. Round angle measures to the nearest degree and side measures to the nearest tenth. Does everybody understand this is not a right triangle? We can't do anything we've done before today. Can't do SOHCAHTOA, can't do 30, 60, 90, not a choice, okay? So if you want to look at it this way, I have angle, angle, side, right? If you remember that, great. If you don't, it's okay. You don't have to know that today, all right? What I try to do, no matter what, is I try to do the law of sines every time, okay? So I'm going to take the sine of 50 over what? Nope. X. Does everybody understand that the 50 and the x are the two that like go together, right? 50 is the degree, x is the side across from it. Does that make sense? Okay. So then I'm going to say the sine of what angle this time? 68 over 5. Does everybody understand how I set that up? That's the law of sines. That's how easy it is. Okay. All period today, I'm going to try to get you to just use your calculator and not write a million things down. This is like the only time a math teacher is going to tell you that, right? Not show your work. I would want you to write this down just for yourself, but after that, I'm not going to show any work. I'm just going to use my calculator, and here's why. If you write all this stuff down, it's really weird decimals, it's really long numbers, and you might miss something somewhere, or you're kind of rounding too much, so it's best if we just plug it in, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to take, don't do it yet, but we're going to take this times this, right, divided by this. Isn't that cross multiply and divide, right? So on your calculator, make sure you're in degrees, like I just said, okay? I want you to take this times this, hit the equals, so sine of 50 times 5, hit the equals. Be careful when you do that. When you do the sine of 50 times 5, most of you guys have to make sure you end the parentheses after the 50, right? So if you know that you're always going to forget that, maybe do 5 times sine 50 instead. Do you guys understand what I'm saying with a common miscommunication there? So hit the equals, and then divide by sine of 68, hit the equals, okay? And this is a side, so they said nearest tenth, so we should get 4.1. If you don't, you're going to tell me, and I'm going to help you in just a second. You're just plugging it in wrong, okay? You're going to take this times this, hit the equals, divided by this, hit the equals. You should get 4.1 when you round to the nearest tenth, okay? Take your time, actually punch it in, right? Now, if you're not getting it, here's where I need you to tell me or bring it over, or I'll come to you. You've got the backwards one, yeah. So is this the calculator you usually have? Yeah. It's totally fine. That's my favorite too. But for today, you're going to get frustrated because it's a little bit harder. So I'm still going to show you how to use it because you might as well. But if you find that after doing you're like, I'll let you borrow one of those. Okay. So you're going to push. You do 50 sine, right? So do 50 sine times 5 divided by 68 sine equals. So try to do it without me. Okay? Anybody else? Same thing? You got it. Okay. Okay. All right, next one. Same concept. This time, I've got angle, angle, side again, right? Angle, angle, side. Do you guys see what I'm saying? So on this one, I'm still going to, if you care, you don't have to know that, like I just said, all right? So I'm going to take sine of 29. That's where I'm starting. What am I going to put that over? X, okay? Equals, well, darn, I can't say sine of 73 over something I don't know. Do you guys see what I'm saying? And I can't say sine of I don't know over 4. We finding the other angle would be the easiest way to finish this problem, right? So can't I find this angle by subtracting these two from 180, right? So take 180 minus 29 minus 73, and we get 78 right here. Does everybody get that? Okay, so it wasn't I have to do law of cosine, I just had to do a little bit of work first, okay? So I've got the sine of 78 over 4. Does everybody understand I'm only missing one thing? I've only got one variable. So that means I can go ahead and do law of sines, just like I just did before, right? So you're going to take, probably for you guys, 4 times sine of 29 would be easier. Hit the equals, divide by sine of 78, hit the equals, and that's what x should be. You should get 2.0 after you round to the nearest tenth, right? So like 1.9 whatever, I don't know. If you're not getting 2.0, tell me. I'll either tell you out loud again or I'll come over, or whatever you need, okay?
I'm not getting 2.0.
You're getting 1.9 something higher than 5 after that, and we rounded up to 2.0. Oh, well then no. Show me what you're doing. Just start. Sure. I don't think you hit the equals after you multiplied by 4, and that's going to be a problem because they think that you're just dividing the 4 by the sine of 78 instead of the whole answer. So do it again. Sine 29 times 4, and the 29. The first time you did it, you did sine 29 into equals, and then you times 4. You can do that again. That's fine. Do what you did the first time. Clear it. Sine of 29, hit the equals because that's what you were comfortable doing the first time. Times 4, hit the equals. Now divide by sine of 78. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so yes, we can do all this in our calculator. We don't have to write a thing down, but the problem is when you come back to this later, you might forget like how we got there. So I'm going to write it down just so we know when we go back to our notes later how we got there, but you don't ever have to do that like on an assignment. Does that make sense to you? Okay, so if we weren't using our calculator, we would have said sine of 29 times 4 equals sine of 78 times x, and we would have divided by sine of 78, right? So sine of 29 times 4 over sine of 78 equals x. That's what we like just did. We just didn't write it down. So if you want to write it down so you have that for later because you might forget how we punched it in, that wouldn't be a terrible idea. If you don't want to, that's up to you. But don't ask me later, how did I get that? I'll be like, oh, you didn't write it down. No, that's weird. Okay? Anybody still need it? All right. Same thing. This time, do you guys see that I have side, angle, side? Okay? If you get that, we automatically know it's law of cosines. Again, I don't memorize which one to use when. It's not really that hard to figure out that law of sines isn't going to work. So let me show you what I'm saying. I would have tried first. I'd have been like, oh, I hope this works. Sine of 64 over x equals sine of, oh, nope, can't do that. Oh, nope, can't do that. Just kidding, can't do it. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm missing too much stuff. I can't have two missing pieces in one question. So I found out within like 10 seconds that law of sines wasn't going to work. Do you see what I'm saying? Okay. So instead we have to do law of cosines, okay? Those two are across from each other. So those are going to be the front and the back of my formula. I know you guys have it right above on your notes, but I'm going to write it here too because I can't see it. A squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cosine A. Okay? That's the formula I'm going to follow. So, side squared, for me that's x squared, blah, 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 cosine of the angle. Those are the ones that are matching, right? This one and that one. And then I'll fill in the middle in just a second. Okay? So for the rest of it, it's the other two sides go in these spots. I don't care which one you put where, it doesn't matter, right? So I'm going to say 54 squared plus 120 squared minus 2 times 54 times 120. I'll show you how to plug that in again. Okay? The only two pieces that have to go in a certain place are these two. Alright? The side squared is alone, just like with the hypotenuse of Pythagorean Theorem. Same thing, it's alone. Okay? And then the angle across from it is the one we take the cosine of at the end. The other two pieces, you just fill in the middle with, right? I could have put the 54 here and the 120 here, or vice versa. It doesn't matter. And then minus 2, 54, 120. Does everybody get how I use the formula to plug it in? Okay? This is really easy, right? Especially if you have the calculator where you can see what you're typing as you go, right? So you guys are going to plug all that in. You're going to plug in exactly what you see. Don't even hit the equals until the end, right? Plug all that in, and then in a second, we'll see what to do with it, okay? So type all that in. And if you don't get what I have, you're going to call me over. don't have what I have, call me over. Are you guys okay? You get it? Okay. That's x squared. What do we really want, though? X, right? So don't punch anything into your calculator yet. We're obviously going to square root both sides. So if you're someone who's good at thinking ahead, you could have just square rooted before you punched all that in if you want to. It's fine. Or we can do it now, but don't touch anything yet, okay? If you have the calculator like Caden and Andrew, where you can't see what you're doing as you do it, you guys just hit the square root button. You're good, right? Everybody else, you're going to do your square root button, so second square root. That number disappeared and you're going to freak out, right? But all you have to do is second answer. So above your negative sign in the lower right-hand corner of your calculator, most of you, is that little A and S in a different color, right? So if you do second answer, that brings it back in under the square root sign for you, and you hit equals, and you should get 107.9. Okay? I'm going to show you again. Everybody should get 107.9 when we're done, okay? So, what we want to do, normally, I wouldn't even write this down. Normally, I would have just typed all that in, and I would have hit second square root, second answer. And I wouldn't have written anything down except for that first thing I wrote. Do you see what I'm saying? Okay? Or you could have done square root of all that if you were good enough to think ahead of time, right? Some people forget to square root it at the end, so if you're afraid you're going to square root it, forget to square root it at the end, then you should do it in the beginning. It's just one extra button, right? It doesn't matter. Does anybody still need me on that? Okay. Anybody need it? We're good? Okay. Same thing here. Do you guys see that it's side, angle, side? So probably law of cosines, I don't know, right? So I'm going to try for 2 seconds, sine of x over 61 equals sine of, nope, just kidding, nope, just kidding, okay, darn it, right? Do you get that law of sines was not an option, and it took me 2 seconds to figure that out, okay? So instead, I've got to do law of cosines, not an option, okay? So the 61 squared is by itself, and the cosine of x is at the end. Does everybody get that's where I start? Okay? And then if you follow the formula, you take the other two sides squared minus 2 times the other two sides. That's all it is. It looks a lot longer than it really is if you just kind of like put them in there. Okay? I want to pause there. If somebody doesn't understand why I put a number where I put it, please ask me before we actually do it. Are we okay? Okay. Why is this one harder? Because the x isn't alone, right? Before the x was really close to being alone, we just had to square root both sides. This time there's a bunch of stuff in the way, right? So again, if you really want to write all that down, if you want to find out 61 squared and write it down, if you want to find out 29 squared and write it, it's big numbers, it's a lot, and then you get weirdo decimals, it's a lot of stuff. So I don't write anything down. I'm going to here so you see what we're doing, but like I just punch it all in, okay? So if I'm trying to get this alone, right? I have to undo this, I have to undo this, and I have to undo this. Do you guys get that? Right? It's just like if I gave you this, what would you do first? Subtract the 4, divide by 2. Same thing, right? So if this is technically being added, it's a positive, how would I make that go away? Subtract it, right? We're going to subtract 29 squared from both sides to make it disappear. And we're going to subtract 50 squareds from both sides to make it disappear, right? I'm not going to push anything in the calculator yet. I'm just walking you through it, okay? Do you guys get that that would undo these two, and I'm closer to x being alone than I was before, right? What's all this doing to x? Multiplying, so what do I do? Divide. So when I do all this, I'm going to hit the equal sign, right? And then I'm going to divide by all of that in a second, okay? And at the end, I'm not going to push cosine, I'm going to push second cosine. We're going to do it together, okay? But that's what we're going to do without writing a whole bunch of stuff down, okay? So everybody take 61 squared minus 29 squared minus 50 squared, hit the equals, because I'm going to do something new, right? So hit the equals. Is that 380? Yeah. Okay. You get 380, okay? Divided by, almost all of your calculators want parentheses when you divide by more than one thing. Here's why, okay? If not, they think you're just dividing by -2 and then multiplying all that instead of dividing by all of it together as like a group, okay? When you guys divide by this, I hate using parentheses if I don't have to. So like inside of here, I don't put the 29 and 50 in parentheses. I just do -2 times, like the x, 29 times 50. Because if not, you have like a million parentheses. You're fine. You can put 29 and 50 in parentheses if you want to. You just can use the multiplication sign instead if you want, okay? Hit the equals, because when we're going to do something new, don't you get like -0.13, something weird? Okay. If you don't have -0.13, give me a second, I'll come back to you, okay? And then our last piece is to undo this. So you're going to second cosine, second answer. That's how we get this back in without writing 50 decimals down. Second cosine of the answer you just had, second answer. So you should end up with 98 if you round to the nearest degree. Okay? I'm going to walk around and say it again. All right?
You said
98 when you round to the nearest whole. Yeah, you're good. Perfect. So now we're at the cosine of I don't know. So we have to do second cosine. Go back to oh, you're good for 4 or 5.
Oh, that would have been. Mine's
Huh?
there too.
Okay. I'll be there in a second. Okay. So do second cosine. Do you understand why? Okay. Of the answer you just had, second answer. Okay. Yeah, feel free to help each other. Okay. That's right. Put it in the apron.
I got the first one.
You can if you want to write a million things down. That's fine. But if you're going to do that, you're going to want to write down more decimals because it's not going to be off by a bit. So if you're going to write a whole bunch of crap down, you want to write down 5 decimals maybe instead of 2. So let me show you. I know you're comfortable for a bit. Let me show you how to just plug it all in first. Okay, we're going to do it. I'm just going to tell you. Did you understand what I said out loud? Yeah. It's just plugging in, okay? So go ahead and get to the 380. See what you do about that, okay? Okay. Divided by. More than one thing, so let's do parentheses. Yeah. This -2 times 29. And hit the equals, and then this is I'll hit the other decimal. Yeah. So now we're going to do second cosine. So second cosine. Or shift cosine for you. Sorry. Yeah, and then for you to get the answer you just had, how many things? Yes, you just push that. You can try it again or I'll play. Okay? Did you get it? Okay, hit the equal. You didn't divide by. Okay, so combining is different. I think you need to start with that. So you know how to get to the 380. Okay, so just start with the equals. Divided by. No, so if you think about it, this is in the way of the cosine. You're taking this divided by this. Okay, try it again.
Sorry. 3H.
Did you get it? No. Okay.
Of 380 to,
So
well,
hit the equals now.
380 divided by parentheses 200.
You didn't put this in parentheses like I said, so your calculator thinks you're divided by this and then Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do the next one. If you still need my help, let me know in a minute, okay? All right, this says solve each triangle. When it says solve a triangle, that means find all the stuff that's missing. So typically they give you 3 things, they need 3 things, okay? So if we look at this triangle, I'm missing angle G, right? I'm missing side H, and I'm missing side J. Do you guys understand how I labeled those? Okay? Some of you guys are still calling this like GH. You're not wrong, but it's across from big J, so it's little j. Okay? Okay. How do I find angle G? That would be really easy, right? Yeah, we have 2 angles, right? So don't we just take 180 minus 34 minus 71? Okay? What do we get for that? 75 degrees. I'm going to write that in. Okay? Everybody okay? All right. If you're still stuck on the last one, I would leave it for a second and watch me do this one, and then I'll come and I'll help you, okay? I don't want you to miss this one. So everybody gets I just subtracted from 180. You're fine. You didn't need my help, right? What do we try and we hope works? Sine. We do the law of sine first, right? So I'm going to start with what I know. I know sine of 75 over 20.3, right? Equals, pick one. What do you guys want? J. So I'm going to pick sine of 71 over J. Everybody good? That looks okay, right? So we cross multiply and divide. You should start getting faster. It should be like a 2-second thing now, okay? You're going to take this times this. You're going to hit the equals. Divide by this. Hit the equals. It's a side, so we're going to round to the nearest tenth. And you should end up with 19.9. I actually want you to do it. Don't just look at mine and be like, yeah, that's what I would get. Like, actually do it, okay? Take your time, get 19.9. If you don't, you're going to tell me in just a second, okay? Are you guys okay? Okay? So now I'm going to look for side H. I can't do like Pythagorean Theorem or anything. It's not a right triangle, okay? So if this worked the first time, can't I start with this again? Right? I'm just going to use that again. So sine of 75 over 20.3, this time, what would I say? Sine of 34 over H, right? So you're going to take this times this, hit the equals, divide by this, hit the equals, nearest tenth. You guys tell me when you get it. I got 0.8. Okay. Yeah, 11.8. Take your time, plug it in, ask a question. Okay? So we found all the missing pieces. That's what they wanted us to do. Okay? Does anyone still need this page? I want to make sure we get the last one done. Are we good? All right, if you need me to come back, let me know, okay? On this one, I'm going to try the law of sines, but do you guys see that it's side, angle, side? Like, let's just skip to cosines. We know it's not going to work for sines, right? So I'm missing angle P, angle R, and side Q, right? I like to do that ahead of time so I don't accidentally find like one thing and move on and forget to find the other two, but you don't have to do that if you don't want to. So if we're doing law of cosines, I want you to try to set it up, because that's the hard part, right? Try to set it up. I'll put the formula up here again. A squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cosine a. You have a pencil. If you do it wrong, no big deal. You can erase it, but I at least want you to try to put them in the right places. At least do this one and this one. Everybody can do this one and this one, right? I'd like you to try to set the whole thing up if you can. Okay? What has to go here? The side, right? So what goes with the cosine here at the end? 70, right? Sine, cosine, or tangent always goes with an angle, all right? So then I just do the other two. 15 squared plus 9 squared minus 2 times 15 times 9. Still times cosine 70, I just have a space there. Okay? Is this the easy one we can plug and chug, or we have to do some extra stuff? That's the easy one, right? If you want, you can go ahead and square root it now. It's up to you. Or you can plug all that in and then square root that at the end, okay? Take your time, plug it in. Either way, we should end up with about 14.6, and don't get rid of it, okay? Keep it on your screen. Don't hit clear. Don't hit clear. When you get 14.6 whatever, keep it on there. If you don't get that, you probably forgot to square root. Try that. Yeah, that's my final. I'm done after I square rooted answer. Yes. Yeah, you got to square root it. And a good rule of thumb when you're doing these, if you got 9 and 15 and like 288, that's probably I forgot to square root or something like that, right? Are we okay? Okay. All right. So I'm going to write down 14.6, but I'm not going to take an extra 10 minutes that we don't have to reteach you how to store numbers in your calculator. I'm going to end up using this later. I don't want to use 14.6 because that's going to make my numbers off. So can you guys give me like maybe 3 or 4 more decimals? 6 what? 169 like this? Okay. You could store it, but we don't have time for that. So we'll use a couple decimals. If you're not getting it, give me a second. Let me finish this. I'll come back, okay? What do you guys want to find first? Angle P or R? It doesn't matter. P. Okay. So if I'm looking for angle P, I'm going to say sine of P over 9. Everybody good with that, right? Equals sine of 70 over that 14.6169. Do you guys get what I'm saying? Once you do law of cosines once, you should be able to do law of sines after that. I can't think of a question where you ever do law of cosines twice. You should be able to do law of sines after that. Okay. So you're going to take this times this, hit the equals, divided by this, hit the equals. You're not going to hit sine, you're going to hit second sine. Do it again then. 35. Everybody do it with me. 9 times sine 70, hit the equals. 9 times sine 70, hit the equals. Divided by 14.6169, hit the equals. Second sine, second answer probably for you. And you get like 35. If I'm going too fast, you guys give me a second because I got to finish the video so I can post it. I'll help you in a second. Somebody let him in. All right, if this is 35, how do I find this one? Don't do anything fancy. Subtract from 180, right? Take 180 minus 70 minus 35, and we get, where am I at? 75. Okay? If I lost you, let me end this video. I'll walk around and I'll help you individually. Okay?